What if the characters we see on screen aren't just fiction, but the suppressed reflections of our own darkest desires? Have you ever wondered what truly lies beneath the surface of the human experience? Welcome back. Please subscribe and like this video to help us explore these cinematic shadows together. Today, we dissect the idiosyncrasies of the extraordinary mind, those peculiar habits that society often labels as oddities or eccentricities, but which are, in reality, the flickering projections of high intelligence. Imagine, if you will, the human mind as a vast, sprawling cinema. For most, the projector runs a linear narrative, a straightforward story of cause and effect, social niceties, and predictable plot points. But for the highly intelligent, the auteur directors of the cognitive world, the film is an avant-garde masterpiece filled with non-linear timelines, complex symbolism, and a mise-en-scène that the average viewer might find chaotic or confusing. We are here to analyze the director's commentary of these minds, to understand why they do what they do, and to see if you, perhaps, recognize your own reflection in the silver screen of these behaviors. Let us begin with the first reel, the habit of talking to oneself. To the uninitiated observer, seeing someone muttering in a grocery aisle or whispering furiously while pacing a room suggests a fraying of the mental tapestry, a scene straight out of a psychological thriller where the protagonist is losing their grip on reality. However, from a clinical and artistic perspective, this is not madness, it is method. Psychology identifies this as verbal reasoning. Think of it as the rehearsal process in a theater. An actor does not simply internalize the script. They speak it into the air to test its weight, its rhythm, its truth. When a highly intelligent individual talks to themselves, they are externalizing the cacophony of their internal monologue to organize it into a coherent narrative. The brain of a high IQ individual is often a noisy, crowded room, filled with conflicting theories, abstract concepts, and racing data. By vocalizing these thoughts, they are effectively casting the characters of their ideas, placing them on a stage to see how they interact. It is a tool for clarity, a way to solidify the ethereal mist of thought into the concrete architecture of speech. It is not a sign of a fractured mind, but rather a mind so potent that it requires an external feedback loop to process its own output. They are the narrators of their own epic, ensuring that the plot holes are filled before the cameras start rolling on their actual decisions. As we move to the next scene, we encounter the phenomenon of overthinking, but with a specific, rigid structure. Overthinking driven by logic. In the cinematic world, this is the difference between a plotless, wandering indie film and a tightly woven, complex noir mystery where every shadow holds a clue. We term this cognitive complexity. The average mind might see a situation and accept the surface-level establishing shot. The high-intelligence mind, however, zooms in. They pan across the details, adjust the focus, and examine the lighting. They are not merely worrying, they are simulating. They are running multiple alternate endings simultaneously. When you see someone lost in thought, seemingly paralyzed by analysis, they are engaging in a high-speed processing of variables, consequences, and probabilities that others simply filter out. It is a burden, certainly, much like the detective who cannot stop seeing the crime scene even when he is at home. They are examining the shadow self of every decision, looking for the trapdoors and the hidden motives. This is not anxiety in the traditional sense. It is a relentless pursuit of the optimal outcome. It is the director refusing to say cut until the scene is absolutely perfect, considering angles that the audience will never even notice, but which are essential to the structural integrity of the film. Now, consider the setting. Where does this protagonist go when the noise of the world becomes too deafening? They retreat to the solitary walk. In our script, this is the montage sequence where the hero wanders through the rain-slick streets or the foggy moorlands. While society might view a preference for walking alone as antisocial or melancholic, psychology reveals it as a critical activation of the brain's default mode network. This is the neural network that lights up when we are not focused on the outside world, but rather turned inward. Solitude is the dark room where the photographs of the mind are developed. During these lonely walks, the creative and problem-solving networks are allowed to synchronize without the interference of external dialogue or social performance. It is in this silence that the disparate plot threads connect. The rhythm of the walking gait often matches the rhythm of thought, creating a hypnotic state where the subconscious can bubble up to the surface. To the high IQ individual, the presence of another person during this ritual is like a boom microphone dipping into the frame. It breaks the immersion. It ruins the shot. They need the empty set to hear the dialogue of their own intuition. We then cut to an interior shot, the living space. Here we find a striking visual paradox, a profound messiness in one area, juxtaposed against extreme, almost surgical organization in another. This is the concept of selective organization. Picture the studio of a chaotic genius painter like Francis Bacon. Paint tubes, rags, and debris clutter the floor, yet the canvas itself is a precision instrument of emotion. Or consider the desk of Einstein. To the outsider, it looks like a disaster, a continuity error in the life of a brilliant mind, but this is a deliberate allocation of mental resources. The highly intelligent mind understands the law of entropy better than anyone. They realize that maintaining perfect order in every aspect of life is a waste of energy, energy that could be better spent on the great work. They create systems where it matters, in their intellectual pursuits, their coding structures, their artistic techniques, and they let the rest fall into disarray. It is a form of prioritization. They are essentially editing the film of their life, cutting out the scenes of cleaning and organizing that do not drive the plot forward so they can focus entirely on the climax. The chaos is not a sign of laziness. It is the byproduct of a mind that is burning all its fuel on a specific, internal fire. The narrative pacing of such a life is also unique, characterized by short, intense bursts of deep obsession. This is the dopamine reward system in overdrive. We've all seen the cinematic trope of the character who becomes suddenly consumed by a new interest, learning the violin in a week, studying the migration patterns of birds, or decoding an ancient language. For the high IQ individual, curiosity is not a gentle interest, it is a hunger. When a new topic sparks their interest, it triggers a rush of neurochemicals that is as potent as any drug. They dive into the subject with a ferocity that can be alarming to bystanders. They become method actors, living and breathing the subject until they have extracted its essence. And then, just as suddenly, the scene ends. Once the pattern is recognized, once the complexity is mastered, the dopamine fades, and they move on to the next script. It is not fickleness, it is efficiency. They are voracious consumers of the human experience, needing to understand the mechanics of the world. They are building a library of knowledge, book by book, obsession by obsession, creating a repository of information that allows them to make those intuitive leaps that seem like magic to others. Finally, we arrive at the dialogue, or rather, the lack thereof. The disdain for small talk. In the grand cinema of life, small talk is the filler, the uninspired exposition, the weather reports, and the polite greetings that pad out the runtime but add no depth to the story. For a mind that craves depth, meaning, and the exploration of the abstract, small talk is physically and mentally draining. It is like watching a film that is permanently out of focus. High intelligence seeks the deep focus shot. They want to discuss the themes, the subtext, the fears, the dreams, and the existential dread that underpins our existence. They are the critics who want to deconstruct the film, not just eat the popcorn. When trapped in a conversation about the mundane, you can often see their eyes glaze over. They are looking for the exit sign, or perhaps retreating into their own heads to write a better scene. They are not being rude, they are simply starving for substance. They are searching for a co-star who can handle the weight of a dramatic monologue, not an extra who is just happy to be on set. These behaviors, these weird habits, are the cinematic signature of a mind that operates on a different frame rate. They are the shadows cast by a towering intellect. To the average viewer, they may seem like glitches, errors in the projection. But to the analytical observer, they are the signs of a masterpiece in progress. They are the evidence of a brain that is constantly editing, refining, and directing a complex internal reality. It is a lonely production, often misunderstood by the critics of society who prefer a simpler, more digestible narrative. But there is a profound beauty in this complexity, a stark, noir-like elegance in the solitude and the obsession. So, as we pull back for the final wide shot, I ask you to look at your own habits. Do you top to the empty room? Do you walk the lonely path? Do you obsess and dissect? If so, do not view these as flaws in your character arc. View them as stylistic choices of a high-functioning director. You are not strange, you are merely avant-garde. You are processing the world through a lens that captures more light and consequently casts deeper shadows. We must remember that the screen is only a reflection of the light we project onto it. These habits are the artifacts of that projection, the dust dancing in the beam of light that cuts through the darkness of our ignorance. Embrace the mess, the mutterings, the solitude. They are the tools of your craft. In the end, we are all mysteries waiting to be solved.